What is up, guys? So in this video today, we are going to be talking about the difference between Zapier and n8n and when to use each, the difference in pricing, and ultimately coming from someone who has ran millions of Zaps, n8n is actually a pretty new tool. So we're going to be looking at the difference between the two. n8n has some incredible features. Zapier obviously is the GOAT. It's been around forever, but we're going to highlight which one to use when today, how pricing can affect those decisions, and ultimately how to improve your workflows, make more money, and create more opportunity for your sales organization through AI, automation, and things like Zapier and n8n. So we'll go ahead and jump right in. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into it. n8n versus Zapier. We're going to be comparing the cost, the flexibility, the AI capabilities, integration, user experience, etc. And there are some major differences here. So the first big one that everyone is gonna, have ultimately impact their business is the pricing of these two. Now, Zapier is a tiered price based on tasks, so this can become very expensive. The more complex workflow you have, the longer your workflow, the more tasks it's going to use because it is running off of each task, each execution. So for example, if we have a trigger and then we have a find contact in CRM step, and then we have an update contact in CRM step, that is using two tasks. Okay. Now, alternatively, n8n is either free if you self-host it, and we'll talk about that in a second, or a pay as you scale model. Okay. And what this means is it is extremely cost effective because it's actually working off of executions instead of tasks. So if you have a super complex workflow, one execution is the entire workflow. It doesn't matter how many tasks you have in there. So it completely just beats Zapier on the usage because in any larger organization, you are going to be using hundreds of thousands of Zaps, and n8n can actually reduce that significantly. We've done it with multiple different organizations. So on pricing, n8n overall is just going to be way more cost effective. And it's going to allow you to reduce the actual usage, even though you're accomplishing the same end result. Number two, flexibility and customization. So Zapier has pre-built integrations and then limited logic, and it's really good for simple workflows. But as soon as you get into something like branching, it is pretty limited. For example, the number of paths that you can actually have inside of Zapier is limited to 8. So if you need more than 8 paths, you actually have to create multiple Zaps. And this is just a limitation that's existed for 7 years that I've been using Zapier. But it's very limited in what you can actually do with the logic. Now, if you're just finding a lead in a CRM, you're updating the lead, you're assigning custom properties, you're filtering based on a couple different things, it is by far the simplest and easiest. Okay. Now, n8n is what they consider full visual programming. So there's conditional logic, loops, API calls, variables, and you can visualize what you're doing a whole lot better. And you can utilize a lot more features, including things like AI agents. Now, on my other videos show you how to actually build AI agents inside of n8n. Zapier does not have AI agents in there yet. We'll talk more about that in a second. But it is fully programmable as well. So it's very easy to throw JSON code into n8n, whereas Zapier, you have to use like the code step, and it works a lot of times for simple functions, but it is limited on what you can actually do. So let me jump in. I want to show you a real quick, the difference between these two. So when we look at n8n, if we come into like this, my workflow 3 here, one of my favorite parts is it's got a visual build. So you can come in here, you can hit the plus icon, and you get to choose whatever you want, right? So let's say we want a sauna, we're going to create a project, and we're just going to click off of this, right? And I can drag this over here and then say, I want it to also go into Adalo, and we're going to create a row in Adalo, and boom, okay? So very simple. You can visualize it. You can drag these things around. You can delete these, and it's a very visual workflow style builder. So you can just come in here and you can delete these. You can reconnect them wherever you want. Okay. Now, Zapier just works straight down in a line. So it's a lot simpler, but that is also one of the problems because it's harder to visualize what you're actually doing. So in Zapier, you're going to have trigger event just like you do in n8n, and then you're just going to go into your action. And the UI here, in my opinion, is much more difficult to use. It's not more difficult. It's simpler to use, but less effective once you know how to actually use it compared to n8n. So next up is AI and advanced use cases, which we briefly spoke about. Zapier recently added AI steps, OpenAI, Claude, but it's very limited control. I actually have another video talking about the Zapier agents that they rolled out and how early stage it is compared to everything else. n8n lets you build full AI agents, chatbots, prompt chains, and error handling. So it is very, very advanced on what you can actually do. Your ability to actually build AI and agents inside of there, something you just can't do in Zapier currently. So if you have, Zapier equals summarize this email, whereas n8n equals create a full AI follow-up system based on a lead profile. Okay. Two different things. So you can utilize ChatGPT inside of a Zap, but you can't give it logic and a brain and memory and an actual chain of things to do. Okay. Now, integrations, Zapier is going to win here. There's like 6,000 plus native applications inside of Zapier that already allow you to do everything you want to do. Now, that's not always a plus because n8n still has 400 plus native integrations, but you have custom HTTP and API nodes, which you can pretty much accomplish everything. So this is going to depend on your skill and your level of ability with API calls. But if you know how to utilize API calls, similar to Make, you probably don't need 6,000 plus apps inside of there because you can do your own API call. So this is where who is it best for? n8n is going to be slightly more complex, but it gives you an unlimited amount of customization and capacity to think through your own workflow and pass information much more freely than you could in Zapier because you're bound to the integration standards that Zapier has with those applications, and it's very hard to connect it externally. Now in Zapier there is an HTTP request and a webhook in there, but it doesn't function as well as n8n. It's not as robust, if you will. It says n8n gives developer level power to non-devs for a bit of setup. So yeah, pretty much you can go in there and you can program anything. If you know how to write JSON, you are going to love n8n. Now, user experience, Zapier has a clean UI, great for UX and non-technical users. And n8n has a visual flow editor. It's more technical feel, but way more control. We've already talked about that. Zapier is simple, fast to launch. n8n gives you more room to grow and scale without needing to rebuild and code later. So that's exactly how I put it. At the end of the day, Zapier is a beginner tool that allows you to do simple automations quickly, and it is very robust. n8n gives you the ability to expand your reach when it comes to the opportunity of creating workflows that do ultimately whatever you want. But with that comes more complexity. Now, it is still very simple to use, and based on the price effectiveness of this, I would recommend any person utilizing automation to explore anything that you can't do in Zapier, to go into n8n and try to learn how to do it. Because once you do learn n8n, it's very hard to go back to Zapier because you can just take care of it in n8n, and you can utilize ChatGPT and AI in almost everything you do. So it actually makes everything a little bit easier because you can lean on AI to fix things inside of that cycle. So I hope this video is helpful. Again, if you're brand new and just trying to set up basic, automations, stick with Zapier. It's going to be a little more expensive, but it's much, much more simpler. If you are exploring automations, you want to learn, you want to grow, and you want to save some money and increase your flexibility, go with n8n. Regardless, both are amazing tools. I've used Zapier for 7+ years. I've ran millions of Zaps, literally millions of Zaps, and n8n is new. So it's also exciting. There's a little bit of a bias there, but everything I've tested in it works flawlessly. It's a great platform, and my favorite part is the visual aspect of it. So I hope this video, again, is helpful. If you liked it, go ahead and leave a comment if you prefer Zapier or n8n, and we'll see you on the other side. Cheers.